In this lesson, we're going to explore bump maps inside of the Advanced Material Editor. Alright, so in the last lesson we created a material, and I did change it a little bit. I changed the actual color of this material, nothing too major. If you want to change it to the same color, you can go to the Color and Alpha, and then choose your little color swatch here, and I just use this red and white. Alright, so now that we have this, let's switch over to the Bumps panel, and you'll see that there are two different sections. There's Bump Production, and then there's Displacement Mapping. Now, a bump map is really just a black and white image that contains black to white information. And what it's going to do is it's going to take those white values or that white information in your map and extend them upward, or give it the appearance that that is extending upward. Now, it's only affecting the light of the material and not necessarily affecting the object itself. Displacement mapping is what's going to extend the object itself. Okay, so we're going to just talk about bumps first. Now, in order to create a bump, we need to create a new function here. So let's double click on this, and you'll see that we can select a function, and I'm going to go ahead and use that multi-cracked function. Now, you can come in and you could use any one of these that you like, but I'm just trying to kind of stay along the lines of the pattern that I've already created. So let's double click on that, and you'll see in here that we're creating a bump pattern, okay, along those lines there. Now you can see how it's kind of pushing into the material, and let's say that I don't necessarily want that. Okay, so if I want to change how this bump map is going to work, I can do it two ways. I can right click and edit the function, and you'll see that it brings up quite a big list of things about this material. You'll see here that I have my bump section. Let's zoom in on this. And we have a combiner which is going to combine all of these different materials or functions into this bump map slot. Now, this may look very confusing at first, but if you are used to node-based material creation, this will be right up your alley here. Now, this really isn't all that complicated, and we'll talk about the function editor probably in another course, because there is a lot to this. But we're just going to kind of get our toe wet here, just kind of looking at it and getting an idea of how it works. So you can see here that I can choose all of these different functions and adjust them in some way. So let's say I have this cracks function that's hooked up to my bump section. I can adjust the scale of this function, so I can drag this up and you'll see how that changes the function overall. If I drag it down, you'll see that we get smaller and smaller cracks. Let's take it back to 3. And I can adjust the crack width, so if I take that down, it's going to make those cracks smaller. And you can see how that is affecting your material here. So if I adjust that upward, you'll see how that works. I'm going to take this back to 0.1, its default location. But you can begin to experiment with some of these different options here. But I wanted to show you how we can control that bump map. Now let's hit OK on this, and let's talk about a different way that we can control the bump map. We can actually use the depth and the bump scale to control how this function looks on our material. So if I want to change the depth, let's say I want it to look like deeper cracks, I can take this up to 2, and you'll see how that looks there. Now, I don't have this lined up exactly the way it should be on our material, because if you'll remember in our color and alpha, we changed the scale of this function to be at 0.5 all the way across. So let's do the same thing here. 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5 here. Okay, so you'll see how that's now matching that previous material. We have it lined up. So the higher we go with our depth, the more it's going to push in. So let's go to 4, and I'm going to hit OK and do a quick render just to see what that looks like there. So you'll see how that bump is working. Now, I don't necessarily want it to push in. I want it to actually pull out. So I'm going to go up to my material editor, And let's change our depth to a negative number. So let's go to -1. And now you'll see that that material is beginning to pull out there. Now, I don't necessarily have to use the depth in negative numbers. Okay, I could leave it at 1 if I like, and then I could change the filter and change exactly how this function reacts. So I'm going to right-click on my filter and hit Edit Filter. Now, it works just like the color and alpha filter worked in the last lesson. So let's do a refresher really quick. If we go back to our color and alpha, this was your filter. So if I double-click on this, it's saying select a color map. And the way the color map worked was any areas that were black were on the left side of this color map or this filter. Anything that was on the right side was white. So in this case, you can see our red color is being filled in any area that's black on our actual filter. So let's double click on that filter. Remember the multi-crack, so you can see all of these black cracks in here. That red color is being filled in there. Now anything that's white is going to be filled in with the white color of that filter. So let's go to bumps. So the left side is going to be our black areas, and the right side are going to be our whiter areas. So if I want these blacker areas to pop up, I'm going to increase their amount. So let's right-click and Edit Filter, and let's hit a new key point here. And I'm going to adjust this up, and then we'll take this one down. Actually, it looks like I may have another point here. Let me try to grab a hold of that. And let's go ahead and take this up then. And then we'll take this one down. And we'll hit OK. So now you can see that that is popping up there. And this would be a preferred method instead of using that depth to increase it or decrease it. We should use our filter first and then increase our depth that way. Okay, so now if I take my depth up into a positive direction, it's continuing to push this outward. Right, so let's hit OK. Let's do a quick render of that just to see what that looks like. And that's continuing to pop out that shape there. Let's open up the material editor, and you'll see that we have this Add to Underlying Layer Bump. This option is only available when the material is a layer of a multi-layer material, and it's not on top of the stack. So basically, we can use this setting to control how bumps of the current layer are added to the bumps caused by the layer beneath it. All right, so right now we're not able to control that because we're not working a multi-layer material here. All right, so that is bumps and how we can control them. It's a pretty basic look. If you want to get even further into bumps, we need to start delving into the function editor. But like I said, we don't really want to get into that in this specific course here. So in our next lesson, we're going to start diving into the displacement mapping and learning how we can displace our objects using maps. So I'll see you then.